Hey folks, I'm Glenn.
I'm Maureen.
And today it's more viewer questions about buying land and finding your dream property. If you have a question, put them in the comments. And jumping right into question number 1.
After one of our previous videos on unorganized townships, someone wrote in and said he didn't know about unorganized townships in Ontario, and he said, how do I find out about them and where are they located?
Well, a little recap. For those that don't know what an unorganized township is, that is an area that has not yet been taken over by another township through amalgamation, or it's a township that has not yet incorporated itself with administrative buildings and all that kind of a thing. So there's no council or anything like that, and therefore there are very few rules and very few, if any, permits that are required. Sometimes there are, but often there's very few rules.
And to find where the unorganized areas are, look on the maps, ask the realtors in the areas that you're looking for. In Ontario here, there is a list. I'll leave a link in the description below, but for those of you who are living outside of Ontario, outside of Canada, or wherever you are, contact the realtors in the area that you're looking at and ask them if there's unorganized areas, and they should be able to help you out.
Right, or you can look at your land use maps, and often there are layers that you can put over top of each other for those areas that have been incorporated, and then those that have not yet been incorporated, similar to the crown land, recreational land, that type of thing for land use. Question number 2.
Another viewer asked if there's unorganized areas close to cities so that he can live in unorganized and commute to the city for work. You would have to look at the maps. In some areas there may be unorganized areas close to cities. Again, you would have to do your homework, ask the realtors in the area. Now in Ontario, I do give a word of caution that in some of the unorganized areas that are close to the cities, the province has put in regulations about what people can do as far as development with land that are close to cities as a way of protecting the development in the organized areas. So make sure you do your homework.
Right, and that's why I said earlier on, in some cases, there are some permits and rules that do apply. So you do have to do your homework and check out each area that you're interested in purchasing your property.
Got a question? Ask in the comments.
And moving on to question number 3.
For properties in unorganized areas, do we need to be worried about permits for wells or septics, is what someone asked. And yes, you do. In unorganized areas, at least in Ontario, Canada, there are permits required for the wells and for septics, and a lot of times the contractors that put those in, they take care of those for you. You just make sure that you do get them.
So I think they're pretty well every spot, every place in Ontario anyway, you have to apply for a permit if you want to put a septic in or a well.
Right, which is actually, I think that's a good idea.
For people's own safety and for the safety of the environment.
Tip of the day, if you're looking for properties outside the city, take your boots.
Question number 4.
When I buy a property in an unorganized township, how many cabins can I put on that property?
You can pretty well put up as many cabins as you want on your own land in unorganized townships.
And that facilitates having like a family property where everyone can have their own cabin. People can come up when they want, and you can have a big family affair and a good time on your property.
I wasn't too sure about that last point, so I went and checked in with my podiatrist. Now I stand corrected. We reside here in an unorganized township, and it's great having the homestead and the off-grid cabin here, and we can pretty much do what we want, when we want, and how we want. We like it that way.
And as many of you know, I worked for the assessment office for 30 years as a property inspector. And one day I went to a particular property. It was like a family affair. They all had their own units, they said. And so I went there, and they were like those train cars, and they got some ingenuity going in their design. And they were all stacked on each other on this really interesting, unique way. They had it was like a train car condominium. It was like the coolest thing I had seen.
It's quite a little complex they had going. And that was in an unorganized township, eh?
It was, yeah.
If you have a question, ask in the comments below.
And keep a watch out for a video coming up on Crown land.
Now, over the years, we have seen a lot of changes in the landscape and in the marketplace and what's been happening to the market and whatnot when it comes to unorganized land. And what are some of the differences that you've picked up on over the last, say, even 5 years, Maureen?
Well, unorganized, a lot of municipalities have started to amalgamate with unorganized townships to expand their land to increase their tax base. I've seen that happening a lot over the last, say, 10 years, even 5 years. The unorganized areas are shrinking, whether it's in Ontario or other places in Canada. There are changes happening.
There seems to be a real exodus from the cities, and the mentality seems to be changing, where people either want to just get out of the city for the sake of getting out of the city, or they want to embrace the country and embrace nature more and get a little piece of land for themselves or a large piece of land for themselves. But they seem to really appreciate a little bit of extra space, and the perceived value of unorganized property has changed in the last 5 to 10 years, where at one time unorganized land was seen as not very attractive because it had no services, and you're just basically out in no man's land, no rules, and there was nothing to access really. So you'd build your homestead there and pretty much live on your own. And in the last 5 years or so, that's exactly the mindset of the masses seem to be changing over, that they want to get away.
Some people are tired of the rules that are happening in some of the municipalities in the city. Like, I was speaking to a young man, he had lived up here, grew up in this area, and then they moved down to the southern Ontario. He was a tow truck driver, and he said some of the rules he had to work by, he didn't agree with. The rules that they had in the municipalities, like you're not allowed to repair your car in your driveway.
Yeah, you can't hang your laundry out in your backyard, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, I want my kids to grow up where they have freedom to do what they want. He said, so we packed up, we found a piece of property, and we found a home so we could live freely like we want to.
The other advantage to living on property which is in an unorganized township is that you can tow your trailer up and then start living on that land right away, or build a cottage or a cabin, a shelter, that kind of a thing. Build your car garage first, and then build your house, right? And live in the car garage for a year or so, and hop, skip, and jump along the way as finances permit, and that kind of a thing, right? So there are definite advantages to living in an unorganized township.
Now, I want to explain to people that we aren't anti-rule or anti-building permit.
Right.
Now, for us to do what we wanted to do when we retired, our plan was to buy a piece of land, build a cabin, live on it off-grid while our homestead was being prepared. In an organized township, we couldn't do that. We had to buy in an unorganized area in order for us to do that. So for our plans to come to fruition. Now, 10, 15 years ago, in an organized township, you were allowed to do that. A lot of people would build, like Glenn said, they would build their garage, they would build a shed, they would stay in that and start building their homestead or their cottage. And that was fine. But now with the new rules, you can't do that.
And that's what makes an unorganized property very attractive to many people these days. So when you go out to purchase your land, make sure it's the kind of land that you want, and that you've got lots of space to do the things that you need to on that property.
Got a question? Ask in the comments.
Well, that's all for this one. If you have a comment or you want to ask a question, by all means, place one in the comments, and we shall see you next time. We've got more questions to deal with on the next one. We'll see you then. I'm Glenn.
I'm Maureen.
See you next time. Over now.
Take care.